Hello and welcome back to another video. This video is going to be an introduction into shading and how to create a value scale. Now, this was actually requested by a student in my school who does not normally have my class, has not had it this year. However, she wanted my class, and because of the NTI day, she's now has the opportunity to watch my videos on YouTube and follow along. And she asked me if I could show a shading technique or how to properly shade. Typically, I do cover this in my class. It usually gets covered within the first or second week of school. But I'm going to be showing you today how to properly shade. So this right here is what I have in the description down below. This is a standard blank value scale, and what we are going to be doing, we are going to be adding in values to this piece of paper, and then we're going to create values using shading. Now, with shading, what you want to do, you actually have a specific way that you are going to be holding your pencil. Most time whenever you write with your pencil lid with the point of it facing downward like this, and you write like that, or you scribe. Whenever you are drawing, however, the idea is not to put all the pressure on the point of the pencil. Instead, the idea is to lay the pencil on its side, so whenever you do apply pressure, for instance on your paper like this, your pencil is laying on its side like that. The reason for that is because it creates a wider surface area, it allows you to shade more, and it also does not damage your paper. By damaging your paper, I mean, have you ever done homework, wrote down your answer on a piece of paper, and then you picked up your paper and your answer or whatever you wrote was actually indented on the table below it? Well, that is because you are taking your pencil with a sharp point and you are bearing down really hard on it and you're creating an indentation. That will damage your paper if you shade like that. So the proper way to shade is to actually hold your pencil like this, where you have your pinky, ring finger, and middle finger around the wooden part of the pencil, and then you have your pointer finger up near the tip where it shaves down into the pencil lead. You will also have your thumb resting on the side of it. And the idea is it is laying on its side, and then you are able to shade like that when it's on its side. Now, that is technically the correct way to hold the pencil. However, it doesn't really matter, to be perfectly honest. That method, the correct way, it hurts my hand. So I adopted a method kind of like this. And honestly, it does not matter at all how you hold your pencil as long as it achieves the same effect where it's laying on its side. That's the only thing that you need to achieve. Now, there are a total of 4 different types of shading, and I'm not going to be covering stippling. We're not going to do that, and let me explain why. Shading is whenever you take your pencil, hold it the correct way like you're going to be shading, and you go around in small circles applying pressure. The tighter the circle, the more pressure you apply, the darker the value. The wider the circle, the less pressure you apply, the lighter the value. So that is how you create shading, and just going around in little circles, just like this right up here. So I'm going to do that, and you can see that I'm shading it in just like that. And I just broke the tip off my pencil, but that's okay. Don't really need it, not for this exercise. And you can see I've already created a light value and a dark value just by going around in circles. Stippling is what you do whenever you take your pencil and just draw a little dot over and over and over and over again. The closer the dots are together, the darker the values. The further apart they are, the lighter the values. And the reason why I don't let my students do that is because eventually it gets to the point where they grab a whole handful of pencils and they go bah, 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 and they destroy my pencils and they destroy the paper, and it's just not fun. So I don't make my students do this. I tell them as soon as they get to this lesson, just go ahead and cross out stippling. It's there so I can explain what it is, but we're not going to do it. Hatching is a method of shading whenever you're using pens or you're using markers. You're using something that you can't get different values just by applying different pressure. Hatching is very simple. It's diagonal lines. Just like that right there. It goes boom, 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 boom. That is hatching. That's all it is. The closer the lines are together, the darker the value. The further the lines are apart, the lighter the value. Cross-hatching is exactly the same thing as hatching, except for every line you go one direction, you make another line going diagonally the other direction. And it's exactly the same thing as before. The closer together they are, the darker the value. The further apart they are, the lighter the value. So let me go ahead and explain this assignment. I've already explained what each of these methods are. This is the very first shading assignment that I give. Basically, you are going to be making your very own value scale. And a value scale is whenever you go from light to dark or dark to light using these methods of shading. That's all it is. So you will be going from as dark as you can make it to as light as you can make it. And the lightest you can make it is pure white, and we're just going to leave that white. So you're already done with that box. So starting with shading, what you need to do, like I said, hold your pencil so the side of the pencil lead is down, and you're going to go around in small, tight circles. And when you do that, you're going to be applying pressure. Okay, and there you have it. Now, whenever you're doing this, don't worry about going outside the lines. If you go outside the lines, it's perfectly fine. Don't worry about erasing it. It's fine. Now, the next step over. This is about as dark as we can get it with a number 2 pencil. So I'm going to move on over, and what I'm doing here, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm just going to widen out my circles a little bit, and I'm going to not put as much pressure down on my pencil, going around in circles, and I'm going to get a lighter value. Okay, now I'm going to move on down, and I'm going to do the same thing for every one of the remaining squares. Every time I go down, I'm going to widen out my circle, and I'm going to not apply as much pressure. That way it's going to get lighter and lighter and lighter. And there you have a value scale using shading. Now notice I did not smear any of that. Smearing is whenever you take some pencil lead like this right here, you take your dirty little thumb and you go whoop and you do it across the paper. Don't ever do that. That's a very bad practice, very bad technique, and it's not something that you want to do. The reasons why. First off, your fingers excrete oil, which means that it produces oils at the tips of your fingers. Whenever you put your dirty little finger down and you smear your pencil lead across the paper, you are creating an oil slick on your paper. Eventually, over time, that will yellow your paper and discolor it, which is not something that you want to have happen to your artwork. Not only that, professional artists do not smear. They don't. Smearing is a dirty little trick that you were taught in elementary school, middle school, and even high school. And then you have teachers that frequently say, oh yeah, it's okay. It achieves the same effect. It might achieve the same effect, but as soon as you go into college and you go into your first drawing class and you bring them an artwork that is smeared, they're going to laugh, hand it back to you and say, nice try, do it again. And the same thing's going to happen if you go into an art gallery and you bring them an artwork that's smeared. They're going to hand it back to you and say, nice job, kid. Try again next time. Smearing is frowned down upon. You can achieve the same effect, as I showed right here, without damaging your paper, without creating that smear, without making it look sloppy, because smearing artworks kind of look sloppy. I'm sorry, but it does, and that's why you don't see artworks in galleries that are smeared. It's frowned down upon. Okay, let's move on. Hatching. With hatching, as I mentioned before, it's this right here. It's just diagonal lines that are close together. The closer they are together, the darker the value. And you can hold your pencil normally for this. You don't have to hold it on its side. So just like that, you can see that that is pretty dark. They're pretty close together. So the next box over, I'm going to open it up a little bit, and I'm going to have a little bit more white space in between my lines. And as you can see, it's starting to get lighter. This is darker, that's lighter. I'm going to widen out my lines. I'm going to put more of a space in between it, so it's getting lighter and lighter. And then eventually I'm going to get down here, and there's just going to be a couple lines in there. And you can see it's going from darker all the way down to lighter. That is hatching. Cross-hatching's exactly the same thing as hatching, except you're basically making crisscrosses. You're making X's. For every line you go diagonally one direction, you make another line going diagonally the opposite direction. So do the same thing as hatching, and then you go back over it, and you add in diagonal lines going the other way. So we're going to do the same thing we did above. Take the same thing, we're just going to space them out more. So, same thing as before. And there you have it. These are the 4 methods of shading minus stippling, because like I said, we don't do that. Shading, holding your pencil the correct way on its side, going around in small circles, filling in the values and making it get lighter as you go down. Hatching, which is just a diagonal line. That's it, just like that. Closer together they are, the darker they are. The further apart they are, the lighter. Cross-hatching. Basically, you're making little X's, crisscrosses. Closer together, the darker they are, the further apart they are, the lighter they are. So, that right there is your assignment. It's a very quick assignment. It's easy to do. This sheet is actually an Excel document that I have linked down below. If you don't have access to a printer, you can make this yourself. All you need is some boxes lined up. That's it. So just draw yourself a little on a sheet of paper, a little rectangle divided into boxes. There you have it. That's all you need. So go ahead, try to do this. Link is down in the description. I hope that this has helped you. I hope that you've learned something. If you want to leave a comment, if I did something wrong, or if you'd like to tell me how much you liked it, go ahead, comment down below. Let me know. Thank you all very much for watching. Have a great, wonderful day.